How many cases you guys had?
Cases?
We cast you out by the power of our
Maybe 1,000.
Today, we're going to break down the Smurl family, a family whose case is often overlooked as while it received a book and movie deal, it was one of the Warrens' lesser cared for cases, as something much more sinister brewed throughout the U.S., the Satanic Panic, which resulted in parents both religious and non-religious to be terrified of not only Satanists, but themselves, and fear what they may not or may have done to their own children for Satan himself. Was Jack Smurl truly abused in his sleep by a succubus? Or was it all a nightmare created by the infamous Satanic Panic of the 80s? We're here to answer that question in today's video. Welcome to the Warren Files. The Smurls lived in a duplex home with Jack Smurl's parents living next door. They claimed that even back in 1973, when they moved in, they dealt with paranormal occurrences. But their case doesn't really start until 1986, when they invited Ed and Lorraine Warren to their home to investigate. The video I'm showing is long. It is an hour and 23 minutes long. As a result, I will not go into every single event that both Janet and Jack talk about, because the fact that we'd be sitting here for a solid 12 plus minutes alone showcasing each paranormal event. So if you want to learn about each event, then you can watch the video yourself, link in the description. There's one important thing to know about each of these events. It heavily and strictly occurs to both Janet and Jack. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, I wasn't able to find anything on Janet Smurl having any sort of medical condition or mental conditions to explain why she believes she's experiencing paranormal events, but I do find it suspicious that she's able to remember something from 1985 when this video took place in 1987. Either she has a damn good memory, because how the hell are you going to remember something from 2 years ago, verbatim, perfectly what happened, or, and this is most likely the event, it's all fabricated. Because why would you remember it, and how do you remember even the date it took place? If you're constantly going through paranormal events one after another for multiple years on end, remember, from 1973 to 1986, how do you remember even the date? That's crazy. If someone had this many paranormal events take place in their life, I really doubt you would have the date and year memorized. Especially for the first ever event, even though they said they had stuff happen in 1973 and that was 1985 when she remembered. But that is a whole 3 years. You could have easily forgotten what occurred, misremembered things, fabricated a story in your head to explain something that happened. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up for me is what I'm trying to say for Janet. Now, while I wasn't able to find a medical history on Janet, I was able to find that Jack Smurl did in fact have a brain surgery done back in 1983. 2 years before all the paranormal events started occurring to him. Important notice, what I'm going to say here is from someone who does a lot of research for my videos. I am not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm not a healthcare provider of any sort. Do not take anything I say as facts and always consult your doctor for anything that concerns you and your health. What I'm going to say is not a diagnosis and will not be used as a fact. Instead, an inconsistency I noticed when researching the Smurl family. Do not take it as fact, as I cannot confirm anything that occurred to Jack Smurl when it comes to his medical history. Thank you. Back to the story. Jack Smurl admitted to one newspaper reporter that he had surgery to remove water from his brain in 1983 because he had been experiencing short-term memory loss due to a case of meningitis in his youth. Now, I'm not saying he could be wrong in his diagnosis, but meningitis normally doesn't require surgery. And if it does, it's normally for the spinal cord, from what I could research. There are 5 types of meningitis, and the only one that may require treatment is bacterial. Bacterial normally requires antibiotics, fluids, oxygen, or steroids unless it's critical. So none besides bacterial may require surgery. So breaking down what BM is and what the surgery consists of, it doesn't really line up with what Jack says he got. BM, by the way, for those who aren't aware, is an inflammation of the fluid and membranes, or the meninges, that protect your brain and spinal cord. When the membranes become affected, they'll swell and press on the spinal cord or the brain. That can cause life-threatening problems. And it can normally strike suddenly and worsen quickly. Now, the interesting part is, according to this website, BM requires surgery on the spine normally, though. What happens is that the dural layer will rupture, causing your cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, to leak. The dural is another term for dura mater, which is the tough outer layer that covers and protects both your brain and spine. So essentially, the outer layer on your spine bursts and will cause your spinal fluid to leak, which can then cause BM, Once found, the doctors will go in, stitch up that layer, and then you'll get pain meds. And if you're still experiencing BM, but there's no need to stitch anything else back up, you're then just given antibiotics because you should recover from there. But again, normally that surgery is on the spine, not the skull. The reason why I'm trying to make that important is because when Googling surgery to remove water from the brain, you get articles about removing fluid from the brain that is common for hydrocephalus. The difference here is that it's for brain tumors. The tumors block the normal circulation of the CSF, cause it to build up, and that can also damage the brain if left untreated. Jack Smurl likely didn't get surgery to remove CSF from his brain due to meningitis, but due to having a brain tumor. Potentially again. Although, yes, depending on what meningitis Jack got, he could still suffer from brain damage, as nearly all of them tick that box, but I am suspicious about the claim of having brain surgery when none of meningitis requires that. Every event could have all been caused by either the brain tumor or whatever that brain surgery was, regardless. And Jack even admitted the surgery occurred in 1983, as you can see from this clip with Lorraine, and they say the haunting started in 1985. Now, I've got one more video for you, which is why this video can't be nearly an hour long. Tony Sparrow actually interviewed the Warrens about the case. Let's get into it. Tony reads from a book that the church wanted nothing to do with the case due to the publicity it was receiving, and likely because the Warrens were tied up in it. This case happened in 1986. This was 5 years after the Arnie Johnson and the Devil Made Me Do It case, the Warrens' most controversial case that has been documented. I can sort of understand why the church wanted to be separated, not only from the Warrens, but exorcisms regarding the Warrens. At 2030, Tony brings up the alleged incident that occurred to Jack where he was sexually assaulted by an alleged succubus. At 2100, Jack then describes it in detail. The only information I got from the book on page 94, where Jack states that there was a sticky substance on him that seemed to be emitted from the creature's vagina. I guess rather than admitting we have wet dreams, we blame it on demon. I do think succubuses are supposed to be sexually attractive, but according to Jack, it was an old lady riding him hard to multiple orgasms, which honestly just sounds like you might find older people attractive, Jack, but that's up to you. And apparently it never occurred since then, so it kind of sounds like, Jack, you might want to have sex with an old lady, but that's okay. Now, Janet has an amazing ability to remember every paranormal event that occurred to her, which could suggest it's real. How could someone remember such nitty-gritty details about everything that should be traumatic if it were fake? On the other hand, that could simply show how scripted it is. Hell, maybe it's the reason why Janet keeps looking over to one side so much, because she could be reading a teleprompter, which was invented in 1950, so yes, it would be around in 1986. But maybe that is why she's doing that demonic-ass neck twist in order to read the screen so she knows what to say next, because what the hell is going on with your neck, baby girl? Jack, on the other hand, while I did say I won't use the inconsistency of surgery against him, I can't imagine that it fared well for him, and most importantly, since Jack and Janet seem to be the only two suffering from paranormal experiences, it is more heavy-handed towards Jack, so I am skeptical. I think the most interesting part of the Devil Made Me Do It, Seductor, and Smurl cases that they all occurred during the prime years of the Satanic Panic. Why am I bringing this up? Because it went a little fucking crazy in the 80s and early 90s. So I don't doubt for a second that those three stories and even the Werewolf of London were heavily influenced by the Satanic Panic. It makes sense. The Devil Made Me Do It was quite early in the 80s, and as a result, didn't suffer too much from it, but probably helped fuel it a little bit, actually. Now, the Seductor and Smurl family was for sure a direct cause of Satanic Panic. There's no meat on the bones for either of those cases besides we're unstable and mentally insane. There are no ghosts, there are no multiple demons in one area, and there's no succubus riding you off until you both nut and then have to blame it on the succubus. It is simply concoction of religion, mental instability due to, or not due to religion, I would think it's religion, drug use or a fear of drugs, and a whole lot of nationwide panic being fueled by media, news outlets, and once again, religion. But as always, I'll leave it up for you to decide. Do you think Janet and Jack Smurl were actually being haunted by not only the dead, but by a succubus? Do you think that Jack's surgery had anything to do with what he was experiencing? Do you trust Janet's insane ability to remember every single paranormal event that occurred to the family? Or do you think the Seductor and Smurl family was purely being fueled by Satanic Panic? Do you think it was all a hoax created by both families and hoped to ride the fame train with the Warrens? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and as always, stay creepy.